Since 1943, tested in the finest laboratory in the world, the human body. Greetings, everyone. It is the Tonic Man with you once again. And tonight, we have a wonderful speaker who's going to talk to you about why you get the results you get with JC Tonic, and why it is so important to know that that has been going on since 1943, when my dad figured out that maybe there was something that could improve the health or keep a person healthy or make them more youthful. We even mark on our label the youth solution. And the reason we do that is because over all these years, it would appear that people who drink JC Tonic become younger or remain younger or start to look younger. We have dozens, hundreds, thousands of people who do not look their age, do not act their age. They act far younger in many, many respects, including not having to go to the doctor as often or even at all compared to most people of their age who do not drink the JC. So why is this? Well, tonight's guest, Dr. Daniel Mowrey, wrote this wonderful book. We refer to it on our website, and I encourage all of you to read it. You can get it at any bookseller. It talks about something called tonic herbs, which are what is in the JC Tonic. And I'm not going to elaborate on that because Dr. Mowrey is going to tell you exactly why and how this works and why it's so important to keep that balance or bring balance back into your body, because that's what will keep you young. And as he points out in his address, he tells you that it will probably eliminate you getting ill, or not as ill as you would get normally if your systems are in balance. So I just wanted to mention that he is a fellow that wrote this book, I think it was 1993, and I got to speak to him in about 1997 when someone said, "Did you read the book, Herbal Tonic Therapies? It seems to be all about your herbs." And I said, "Well, no." So I got the book, I read it, and then I tried to reach him. And through a friend of mine who was a master herbalist, I said, "Do you know a guy by the name of Dan Mowrey?" She says, "Dan Mowrey, Herbal Tonic Therapies?" She says, "Sure." She says, "I used to work with him." Well, she says, "Why, you want to meet him?" I said, "Well, can I?" Well, 3 days later, I was on the phone with him. And when I told him that my father had developed a whole body herbal preparation using tonic herbs, he said, "No, it's not possible." Well, I said, Dr. Mowrey, it has all the symptoms, portents, signs, results when you drink it of what you're talking about in your book. He said, "It's impossible." He said, "No one understands that theory in Western medicine or in this part of the world." Well, I said, and I told him the story where my dad came from Europe, he went to Canada, anyway, I asked him if he would look at it, and a couple of months later, he wrote me back, and he was astounded to discover that there was a fellow, my father, who had actually prepared a whole body preparation using these tonic herbs. So, as I tell everybody, the rest is history. So let's have a listen to what Dan has to say about tonic herbs. And pay attention, because everything he says is going to ring a bell with you. And when you hear this, of course, a lot of you have, because Dan has been around us since the 90s, and many so have you. But all of you new folks in the last 20 years that did not get a chance to hear Dan or to read his book, I encourage you to read the book, and I encourage you to listen intently and then tell people about it, because this is a story that has to be told. Okay? So here we go.
Good evening, friends. Thank you for coming. We're gathered here tonight, hopefully to learn something about our health that will be truly revolutionary. Something that will absolutely change the fundamental way we think about our health, about disease, about wellness, and most of all, about what we can do about it. We owe this occasion to a man who in the early part of this century was able to develop what was then a truly unique concept in human health and wellness. We are here because his son has carried on that tradition and has made it possible for us to enjoy the fruits of their labors. We live in a society that is characterized by a large degree of very stressful circumstances. We get up in the morning and we're already under stress. By the time we go to bed at night, the stressors have accumulated during the day to such an extent that sometimes we can't sleep. Stress and how to relieve it, or at least to minimize its effects, is a subject of incredible, important, and great concern to almost all of us. It seems that the society we live in just puts a lot of great demands on us, physically, not only physically, but mentally and emotionally, spiritually even. Now, the body has an amazing ability to adapt to stress and the changing nature of stress as we go through the day, yet that ability is often exceeded. And then its effects can be seen throughout the body, like the cracks in a mirror. We stay up too late, we get up too early, we eat too much, or we eat too little, or we eat wrong. We work too many hours or work not physically enough. We worry too much. We exercise too little or exercise too much. We drink, we smoke, we drive cars in polluted air. We drink water laden with chemicals. We eat artificial food. We expect too much of ourselves and others. We hold it all in. We are proud to the extreme. We watch too much television. We read in too dim of light. We drive too long. We take too many drugs. All of these things are stressors. They can make us sick. And then sickness is yet even another stress. The symptoms of stress, you're probably all familiar with. They include such things as insomnia, headaches, ulcers, nausea, muscle tension, fatigue, exhaustion, susceptibility to colds, hay fever and asthma, flu, those kinds of things. Premature aging and degeneration, Addison's disease, general malaise, constipation or diarrhea, or other gastrointestinal problems, cloudy thinking, rage, anger, hypertension, hypersensitivity, muscle tension and muscle cramps and those kinds of things, cloudy thinking, poor memory, inability to concentrate. How about fading eyesight and other visual disturbances? Other kinds of similar things that just aren't going right. The health is depressed, the ability to bounce back is reduced, and so forth. But now, here is a new idea, something that hopefully by the time you leave here tonight, you're going to truly understand, and that is this, that stress may also be viewed as a departure from balance. You will hear me use this term a lot, balance. Balance, balance, balance. This is the key concept that we're going to be discussing tonight. If stress represents a departure from balance, then what we want to do is reestablish balance. Unfortunately, our lifestyles do not contribute to that end. We need to find some way to help ourselves do that in the face of all of the forces of daily life that would take balance away from us. Even though all the systems of the body try to maintain some degree of balance among the dozens of physiological processes that are going on in our body at any one time, when these processes get unbalanced, disease results. Now, let me emphasize that. Within the system we're talking about here tonight, unbalance or imbalance equals disease. Balance, then, equals health. If we can stay balanced, we stay healthy. Any departure from that balance represents some degree of poor health, some degree of disease. Now, I know that we don't usually think about balance in terms of health and disease, but for our purposes tonight, and hopefully for the rest of your life, you're going to be concentrating on this particular consideration to a great extent. Now, it's true that contributing to our problems in understanding balance is the orthodox medical model of disease that dominates our thinking. Much of what has been written about herbs even has been heavily tainted by our educational experiences about health and disease, and that education has more often than not reflected the medical model. This model holds that most disease is germ-induced, and the cure of the disease is effected by killing the germ, or perhaps by inoculating the patient against the disease. Diseases that are not germ-induced may nevertheless be categorized according to the drug that cures them. Anti-cholesterol drugs, hypotensive, painkillers, anti-inflammatories, anti-cancer medications, and so on. This orthodox medical model is so ingrained that even our herbal books reflect the same mentality. We have herbs that fight cholesterol, herbs to fight cancer, herbs to kill germs, herbs to induce bowel movements, herbs to fight arthritis, diabetes, senility, muscle aches, insomnia, and so on. According to this view, the distinction between herbal medicine and orthodox medicine is simply between the relative toxicity and synthetic nature of drugs versus the relative safety and naturalness of herbs. Drugs are powerful, synthetic agents that usually have a lot of side effects, and herbs are mild, natural substances that usually have fewer side effects. Recent writings in herbal medicine have even tended to blur these rather obvious distinctions. Thus, we are learning that some, if not most herbs, can be toxic if used, for example, for prolonged periods of time or in high doses. And we're learning that some combinations of herbs actually can yield interactions that should be avoided. And that certain semi-synthetic derivatives of herbs are supposedly as good as or even better than the original natural plant material. All of these kinds of things are clouding the distinctions between herbs and drugs, and it's all because we tend to think about these things within the terms and the considerations of the main medical model. And although the users and purveyors of alternative medicine talk a lot about whole body wellness, 90% of all herbal products currently available are strictly direct reflections of the orthodox medical model of disease. They do not address or support whole body wellness. We need herbal products that are truly wellness-oriented, whose primary function is to restore and maintain wellness. And as I mentioned, balance is wellness, wellness is balance. So we need herbal products that will maintain and support balance and wellness. Now there are other nutritive items, vitamins and minerals that do this also. But for tonight's discussion, I would like to talk primarily about the herbal products. It has been my experience that there is a whole category of herbs whose benefits have been lost to our understanding through decades of misinformation and fuzzy thinking. These are herbs which exhibit a balancing effect on whole body systems, as well as on individual physiological processes. That is, they keep these processes on an even keel, neither overactive nor underactive. These are the herbs of our discussion tonight. These are the herbs that I call tonic herbs, and I believe they hold the promise and solution for correcting almost all the ailments of modern man. And unlike the other herbs that are out there, all of the non-tonic herbs, these are herbs that the layman can use without a large degree of information and education about herbal medicine. And that's, you look at it from a teleological point of view, that's the way we would expect the world to be organized. We shouldn't have to be experts in any kind of medicine, whether it's orthodox or herbal medicine, in order to derive the benefits out of the medicinal substances that are provided on the earth for us to use. The tonic concept, even though I'm introducing it to you tonight as something very new, which it is in Western thinking, it is actually of a very ancient origin. Going way back into the early reaches of Chinese medicine, for example, the tonic concept evolved over thousands of years until we have actually self-selected a very small group of herbs from the hundreds of thousands of herbs available throughout the world that we would include in the tonic concept. But even though it is an ancient concept, even though the term tonic reaches back into the primordial years of human existence, the concept itself encompasses properties that are more modern than anything dreamed of under the orthodox medical model. Relying on orthodox pharmaceutical language and patterning herbal remedies and combinations after the medical model has actually resulted in the loss of knowledge concerning tonic herbs, their unique properties, and their relationship to total body wellness. But as we are presently going to see, what the tonic does is something that nothing in orthodox medicine can do, and that nothing in your typical alternative approaches to health conceive of. So let's see if we can't define what a tonic is more exactly. This necessitates removing any preconceptions that you might have about that word and listening very carefully to what I'm going to say. Now, a tonic has nothing to do with snake oil or patent medicine or hair lotions or liquid extracts or tinctures, all of these kinds of things that we sometimes associate the word tonic with. Personally, I wish I could have thought of a better word because we could avoid all of those age-old associations. But I want you to put all of it aside. Now, those of you who are familiar with the term adaptogen and may think that tonics and adaptogens are pretty much the same thing, I want you to put aside that understanding also. Adaptogen, an otherwise useful term, occupies just a small space in the grandeur tonic landscape. If you've been listening closely to what I've been saying, it should be no surprise to you that I would say that the basic concept underlying tonic herbs is balance. So tonic herbs restore and maintain balance. Their action is directed toward whole body systems and individual physiological processes. Now, body systems would include such things as the nervous, digestive, musculoskeletal, cardiovascular, cerebral, reproductive, and immune systems. And processes would include physiological and biochemical functions that affect blood pressure, blood sugar levels, cholesterol levels, the function of electrolytes and buffers, neurotransmitters, hormones, enzymes, and vitamins, and those kinds of things. But of all the terms associated with tonics, of all of the terms that we're going to talk about, I'm here to tell you that the most difficult to grasp is balance, even though we seem to think we know what it means. Superficially, the word is a simple one and should not create any confusion. Furthermore, most people find nothing objectionable about the word. It seems to make perfect sense. But I often encounter a reluctance in many people to distinguish one herb from another on the basis that one restores and maintains balance while others don't. Objections to this distinction range from, don't all herbs do that, to, so what? In reality, balance is not a characteristic of most herbs. Indeed, it may be the rarest of all properties. It is so unique that only a handful of all the hundreds of thousands of plants in the world possess it. You know, the action of any ingested chemical, whether from food or a supplement or a drug, is to push some physiological process in a certain direction, commonly to either increase a process or to decrease it. For example, vitamin C increases certain processes inside cells throughout the body that affect the healing process. Essential fatty acids find their way into cell membrane physiology. Silicon from horsetail increases the rate of tissue growth and becomes part of the structure of new tissue. Certain substances from gentian root stimulate the flow of gastric juices. Substances from onions cause the tears to flow. Pushing processes is what physiologically active substances do. However, most substances push a process in one direction only. Now that makes sense. Can any of you just off the top of your head think of drugs, for example, that would push a process in two directions? On the surface, that sounds like a counterproductive idea. But think about balancing. Balancing processes requires pushing them in opposing directions. It assumes that a process works best if maintained within certain limits. This assumption is indeed correct. All physiological processes operate within fairly narrow limits. While operating within those limits, they are said to be in a state of homeostasis. Think of a teeter-totter. When the board is perfectly level, equal weights on both ends, it is balanced. This is homeostasis. The normal or healthy state of a body, process, or a system is one of balance. As the teeter-totter begins to dip in either direction, balance is lost. Likewise, in the body, deviation from a normal balanced state produces imbalance or disease. Stated simply, balance equals health, imbalance equals disease. Or we could say this, balance equals good health, imbalance equals poor health. Correcting the imbalance restores balance and health. This is an incredibly important concept for you to understand. And even though it sounds simple on the surface, as you begin to apply it in your lives and see what it means, you're going to find that it'll open doors to your understanding of health that you have never seen before. In today's world, stress is perhaps the number one cause of disease. Now, back to that teeter-totter, if you increase the weight on one side of the board, that is like applying stressor or increasing stress to that side. Stress is any force that tends to push any body system out of balance. Let me repeat that. Stress is any force that tends to push any body system out of balance. Stress can create hyperactivity, too much activity, as well as hypoactivity, too little activity in a particular system or process in the body. Thus, there are diseases of underactive processes and diseases of overactive processes. For example, an underactive immune system is susceptible to infections, colds, and flus. It just isn't up to snuff. Likewise, an overactive immune system tends towards symptoms of imbalance, including hay fever, allergies, and autoimmune disorders. It's just a system that's going too strong. It's overactive. In our teeter-totter analogy, stressors then would be weights applied to either end of the board, forcing it out of balance, and directly proportional to our concept of imbalance in health. Now, imagine the orthodox medical model's approach to those conditions. The physician administers drugs that push the body in the opposite direction of the stressor or disease-causing agent in an effort to return the process to a healthy state. The drug is normally foreign to the individual and the body cannot use it in a normal way. The body can only respond to the drug in a certain way. If the drug works, the acute condition of poor health disappears and the drug is withdrawn. If the side effects of the drug were not too serious, the body will eventually regain health, but only after the drug is withdrawn. The reason drugs have so many side effects is that they upset balances in so many other physiological processes while attempting to correct the targeted problem. This is not an optimum approach to restoring health, even though it may be effective in halting the progress of certain kinds of disease. Certainly no one would consider continuing the use of a drug once health had been restored. Even the use of drugs such as cortisone and insulin, which mimic chemicals produced by the body, is fraught with side effects, blunting of normal physiology, ups and downs in responses, and so forth. While the specific purpose of drugs is to restore health, these substances are typically inadequate to the task. In terms of our teeter-totter model, the weight applied to one end of the board by the drug has a tendency to push the board through the balance point and unbalance it in the other direction. At the same time, it is unbalancing other boards around the playground with unpredictable and sometimes devastating consequences. The drug just keeps on pushing in one direction, and the longer it is applied, the further it pushes. In the body, if the normal homeostatic set point is overshot, the drug just continues pushing anyway. Then, as often as not, you have to take another drug to push the body or process back the other direction. This kind of chaotic approach to medicine and health keeps the body under constant stress and seldom allows disease-free life to occur. So within the medical orthodox model, you have back and forth things going on all the time, chaos reigning supreme in your body as you try one approach after another to somehow restore and maintain health. It'd be much easier if we could figure out a way to maintain balance, restore balance, and just keep it there and do it simply, easily, without a lot of problems and a lot of interaction with doctors, intervention by drugs, and so forth. Now, to review, stated simply, drugs are unidirectional in action. They work one way, unidirectional. Ironically, counter to normal expectations, that is also the way almost all herbs work. The difference between unidirectional herbs and drugs is that herbs lack the side effects of drugs and are generally milder in action. Like drugs, however, these non-tonic herbs, would have to call them, because they we'll find out that a tonic herb is not unidirectional, but these non-tonic herbs, which, by the way, is almost all known herbs, are only capable to push the body in one direction. For example, if your immune system is depressed, an immunostimulant herb will push it back toward normal. However, continued use of that herb will eventually push the body beyond normal balance toward overactivity, which ironically will manifest itself as a blunted immune system response. On the other hand, prolonged use of an immunosuppressant herb would produce a similar blunting of immunoresponsiveness. Now, because unidirectional substances do not restore and maintain balance, consumers of these kinds of products, whether they're drugs or herbs, often find themselves somewhat out of balance all of the time. For example, using energizing substances to enhance performance during the day and then needing depressant agents to put themselves to sleep at night. People trying to use herbs have to make complex decisions about which herbs to take, how long to use them, and when to use them. An extensive knowledge of the particular actions of each individual herb is required in order to choose the correct herb to match the immediate needs of the body. A wrong decision can lead to less than satisfactory results, bad results. By way of a little historical background, the reason that I stumbled onto the tonic concept originally was because I was wrestling with this idea that people were trying to use herbs, and they had this idea that using these things would be simple with no problems. They're natural materials, so how could they harm you in any way? And I realized that this was a misconception, that herbs are fairly complex substances and that it takes quite a strong background education and a great deal of experience using herbs in order to use them to produce optimum health or to avoid problems with them. And so I was looking for a solution to that very complex problem. And what I found was that on almost all societies across the earth, there were groups of a few herbs that could be used by everybody under any conditions at any time, and they were usually the most valuable herbs of the society. I looked more closely at these herbs and began to realize that these herbs were different than most herbs. They had a unique quality. Now, I learned to call these herbs tonics because primarily in the Chinese society, that's what they were called. Now, as I already mentioned, tonic herbs do not push body systems or processes beyond normal limits. So a person can use these herbs with impunity. If they're not going to push a body system out of balance, then they must be appropriate for use under all conditions. Furthermore, it doesn't matter if a system is underactive or overactive, the tonic herbs will help restore balance or normal functioning. So you don't even have to diagnose whether you're overactive or underactive. You just have to realize that you're out of balance, that stress is getting to you. Now, this is different from simply pushing the body in a certain direction. It involves pushing the body in opposing directions, pushing the body toward homeostasis whenever it would depart from normal, increasing the dynamics of resistance to change or inertia while in a state of balance. So if you're balanced, then the use of the tonic herbs will help keep you there, keeping your body in a high degree of resistance to change. But if you're out of balance, it will push your body back toward balance, and this is the best of both possible worlds. In other words, helping the body achieve and maintain balanced physiology at all times and under all conditions. That's quite an enormous task for a few simple herbs, but it is astounding how well they can do it if they're just given the chance. And that's what you're here tonight to learn, is how to give these herbs a chance. What are they? What's the best form I can get them in? What's the easiest way I can do this? How can I obtain optimum health through with the least effort? And we're going to learn that. Now, this ability of a single plant to exert forces that act in two opposing directions, two actions that are directly opposite to one another, even though that distinguishes tonic herbs from all other herbs and from orthodox medicines, poses a certain problem, doesn't it? In order to act in two opposite directions, tonic herbs must contain groups of constituents that act in opposing directions. Now, the fascinating thing about the research I've been doing for the last 20 years is discovering just exactly that truth. These herbs do possess groups of constituents that act in opposing directions. Now, think about that a minute. Do you know of any drugs that contain substances that work in opposing directions? It just doesn't fit within our medical model of thinking. And you got to think outside the box just a little bit with me here, because the concept is very difficult. It supposes that the body is able to recognize and respond to the exact group of constituents that it needs. Does the body do this? Can it do that? Indeed, it can, and science and research has demonstrated over and over again that it can do that. If a plant has groups of constituents that will suppress immune system functioning on the one hand, and another group of constituents that will stimulate immune system functioning on the other hand, then if you give that to a body that is in a depressed state, it will increase it. If you give it to a body that's in an overactive state, it will decrease the functioning of the immune system. A magical process? I think so. And I think it's something that nature has provided for us, and that the herbal systems throughout the world have been able to very carefully develop over thousands of years of usage. And now we in America have the opportunity of reaching out and benefiting from all of the history, accumulated wisdom of mankind in this area, as well as the things that modern science is beginning to reveal about how these tonic herbs work. So obviously there are no tonic drugs. So just get that out of your mind. You're not going to be able to enjoy this kind of benefit from any drug. Drugs are simple, powerful chemicals that possess a very narrow unidirectional scope of action. Now, I emphasize that because most herbs are unidirectional also. Although they're infinitely more complex substances than drugs and typically exert several different actions in the body all at once, these actions do not usually include a tonic effect. And so you have a situation where in order to effectively use the herbs, you really have to be an educated herbalist. Now, I mentioned previously how I alluded to how an herb becomes a tonic, and this happens in two ways. But let's review exactly some of the broader concepts of a tonic. It has to meet certain criteria. Today there are basically two ways that the tonic action of a plant is determined: through the established long history of the demonstrated ability of the herb to exert tonic action, or through the application of modern science, which occasionally is able to create a new tonic herb through the creation of an extract that eliminates some of the more potent things, and it winds up creating an herb with gentle action that it has this idea of bidirectionality built into it. You don't see that very often, but occasionally we've been able to uncover those kinds of things. Now, sometimes I'm asked, what happens if you combine tonic herbs with non-tonic herbs? Does this, what happens there? Does it just make the non-tonic herbs better or make the tonic herbs worse? Well, the answer to that, if you think it through, is actually fairly easy. If unidirectional herbs are acting in one direction only and they're fairly powerful, and you add them onto a teeter-totter that's being kept in really perfect balance by the tonic herbs, what's going to happen? It's going to push it out of balance. So it's never a good idea to combine tonic herbs with non-tonic herbs. And the related question to that is, well, should you combine tonic herbs together? And the answer to that is definitely. If there's been one thing demonstrated through the hundreds of thousands of years of use of tonic herbs, is that they get better in combinations. And the reason for that is because their activities are spread over all of the systems of the body. And so you wind up balancing body systems in conjunction with one another. So if you combine a group of herbs together, such as is done in the Uric Classic, that have activities in multiple body systems, you get a synergy, an effect greater than the sum of the individual herbs. You obtain a synergy that extends its activity throughout all of the systems of the body. And so those kinds of stressful things in our life that affect multiple body systems, the endocrine system, the nervous system, the digestive system, all at the same time, they're all counteracted together. So tonic herbs are almost always better consumed in combinations. Now, how do you know which ones to combine together to obtain the optimum effects? Well, that typically is a matter of experience. And those people who have spent their lives dealing with tonic herbs are almost geniuses when it comes to understanding which of the tonic herbs combined together are going to produce the maximal effect. Now, my friends, you are extremely fortunate to be knowledgeable or acquiring the knowledge about one of the really important combinations of herbal extracts that I have encountered in my experience, and that is the Uric Classic. This concept was developed at a time when the concept of tonic itself was totally lost to Western herbal medicine. And it was extraordinary that a man had the vision to create a product like that during that era. But fortunately for all of us, he did, and we now have it within our grasp, and we can make good use of it. Now, another question that I sometimes get asked about these kinds of things is, well, are there going to be certain contraindications? Are there certain occasions when I shouldn't use one? And the answer to that is, again, dependent upon our definition of bidirectionality and of balancing and of what a tonic is. Obviously, if these herbs are balancing and restoring balance to the body, they're not going to be contraindicated under almost any condition. You could use them at any time. It also means that they are not going to ever interact with one another in a negative way. There's always going to be positive synergy, positive interaction. And so, bottom line, the tonic takes the guesswork out of herbal medicine. It takes the guesswork out of modern medicine. It takes the guesswork out of how you're going to stay healthy, what you're going to do about your life to help maintain health and throughout all the body systems that you have. And you can't lose with this. Most people just want someone to tell them what herb to take. They don't have the time or the inclination to become an expert in herbal medicine or botany. If you did have the time, then you could probably make good use out of all the other non-tonic herbs out there. When an acute infection occurred or some sort of a great trauma occurred to the body, you would know how to use those things. The herbal tonic, without having to go into all of that educational expertise, it just gives you a fail-safe, no-nonsense, stress-free way to enjoy the benefits of the best herbs the world has to offer. Most of you, whether you're a novice herb user or an experienced herbalist can satisfy almost all of your routine wellness needs just simply by consuming a group of tonic herbs like is represented in the Uric Classic. Highly recommend it. And I think that brings our discussion for this evening to a close. I wish you all the best of health. The daily, long-term consumption of the Uric Classic is going to be something that your life is going to benefit from. I hope you have the opportunity to share it with as many people as you can. And good luck to you all. Good night.
Well, everybody, what do you think of that? And here I am, probably another week or so, and I'll be 84 years old, and they tell me I do not look my age. But you know what? I'm not the only one. There are some of you on the call tonight. There are hundreds more that are not. But over the years, I've met you, and I've seen what's happened to you, and I've seen the before and after pictures, and I see today that you still look 10, 20, 30 years younger than your actual age. That is the idea of balance. So look, what's next? Well, what's next is all of you have to pay it forward. Use this address of Dan Mowrey will be emailed to you shortly. Get it on your phone. Get it out to all your contacts, all the people that were always wondering about herbal medicine. I'm sure all of you have friends, family that use all kinds of herbs, hoping that it's going to do what they're purported to do. But as Dan said, they just don't unless you really know your way around herbs and how much to take and when to stop and which one. And it's very complicated. So you listen to what people say, or you read the label in the health food store or the drugstore, and you buy a few things and you take a few of this and a bit of that, and you're hoping for the best. You all know people like that. Heck, I've known people like that all my life. And when I explain to them what the tonic herb is, of course, they're incredulous and they don't believe it, but letting them listen to the way Dan explains it and turning them on to his book and so on will win the day for you. And so that's what you should be doing with folks who are already using something to try and stay healthy or get healthier or remain youthful. And if you explain to them what there is in this bottle of preparation and what Dan said, I think you've got a winning combination, and you can go forward and convert a lot of people. Remember, a lot of people have to be converted, not only from the herbal medicine, but look at all the drugs that are being used, and people swear by them, and they will not go off them, even though they feel terrible, even though they're suffering from all those side effects that Dan spoke about. They still take them. And sometimes, as you know, they take them and take them and take them, and maybe they don't even need them anymore, but no one thought to maybe stop them or reduce it, or, until they feel really poorly. So you have all that ammunition to bring on the table and explain to people why they should be drinking the JC Tonic. And last but not least, if this product has been around and used by people since 1943, invoke that. Tell people. As a matter of fact, that really important company slogan is written on the label of the bottle. Since 1943, tested in the finest laboratory in the world, the human body. What more important laboratory could there be than the human body? What does it do? 1 million things a second? 2 million things a second? Who even knows? But look, it's doing an awful lot of stuff. And it doesn't take very much to go wrong for it to start getting out of balance. And when the wheel of your car starts to get out of balance, you might feel a little shimmy. But if you leave it too long, it'll actually shake right off the car if you keep driving. So you know what balance is. You know what it is in your life when you hippity-hop up and down the stairs or into the bathtub or dive in a pool or you know what balance is, and you know if you're losing it. So the teeter-totter, keep it in mind, the teeter-totter, the seesaw, and do your very best to help all those people. Remember, this is a mission, and the happy part of that, when you fulfill the mission, there is a commission. So you can drink free and you can help people. Show me any product that really helps people and also gives somebody an income. Well, there are a few, but there's an awful lot that don't do both. So you can do both. And remember, we have all kinds of ways that you can drink free. So talk to the person that brought you into the family of the JC Tonic or the Urac Classic Whole Body Tonic as we know it from the beginning. And remember, it is a youth solution. So remember that. Drink hearty. Thank you for being here. We will see you on the next call with something exciting. But in the meantime, don't forget, if you take an ounce, you'll feel the bounce. Bye for now.
Urac Classic Whole Body Tonic is a dietary supplement, not a drug. Therefore, it is useful to affect the structure and/or function of your body in various ways. But it is not intended to and will not cure, mitigate, treat, or prevent any disease. Individual testimonials may not be everyone's experience and do not constitute scientific evidence. Urac Corporation does not make any drug or treatment claims for its product.